Thank you so very much for joining us for another session of our Lunch and Learn to connect you with resource providers throughout the state to tell you about their services and programs. My name is Walisha Wilson Menifee. I'm the founder of New Life Second Chance Outreach, a resource sharing hub for Georgians and some folks in Alabama who are impacted by a criminal record. We share resources if it has anything to do with individuals with a criminal record, we are sharing it. And although our services are exclusive to individuals with criminal records, this month is breast cancer awareness month, but also domestic violence awareness month. And although that is can affect anyone, including men, women, even their pets and children, and a large number of women who are impacted by the criminal legal system based on actions that they've had to take to protect themselves. Domestic violence is an issue that is often one that seems taboo and a lot of folks don't want to talk about, particularly in certain communities, especially in the faith communities. Um, Georgia has a very large number of individuals who are impacted by criminal justice, as well as one of the largest number of women who are actually killed. If I'm not mistaken, I think at last week's event, we found out that over 300 women, if I'm not mistaken, it may be more than that, Kyle, um, are killed every year in the state of Georgia from domestic violence. And so we are bringing these every Thursdays up until mid-November, introducing you to organizations who's doing great work in the communities. But this month we're focusing on organizations who provide domestic violence services and programs, stalking, dating violence, to educate you on the signs of domestic violence, abuse. What people always assume is always physical, but it's mental, it's psychological. It can be financial, where folks is, your abuser's keeping money from you. And also, I think this is very pertinent too, because we're coming up on the holidays. And I can remember when I was in a very abusive relationship years ago, the holidays was the absolute worst with me because I was stuck inside of the house with him. And so we just want to keep that in mind, but also equip you with some information. So be sure to join us at our upcoming events, whether we have these on Thursdays or some of our other events that we have on our website. That information will be dropped in the chat. And from this point, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Kyle Bair, the executive director at the Center at 909 out of Columbus, Georgia. And they are doing great work to support survivors of domestic violence and their children. And their services include free legal and medical services, court and trial accompaniment counseling, support groups, law enforcement advocacy, assisting survivors with applying and communicating with the victims' compensation program, and more. So at this point, I'll turn it over to you, Kyle. I think you have a presentation you're going to share with us. We'll have the presentation, and after the presentation, we will have Q&A. But in the meantime, if Kyle is going through something and you have a question, just drop it in the chat, and we'll be sure to get that answered during the Q&A time. Thank you, Kyle. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Alicia. It's a pleasure to be with y'all. I love the work that you do, and we are always appreciative of the collaboration we have. And so appreciate being here. I do have with me Andrea Daniel, who is one of our victim advocates. Andrea is actually responsible for victim stats and gathering and reporting that for us. So she can address numbers and all as well, but she's a trained advocate, has been with the center since 2014. And so she's my longest serving employee. But we do have a presentation that I kind of want to go through and be able to show people some of the reality, what we look like and that sort of thing. If you have not seen the center, there we are, our beautiful teal awnings and the signage out front. I can see the Piedmont Midtown ER from my office space. And that's important because the majority of our victims do present to Piedmont Midtown. Of course, you can choose to go to any hospital that you like, but St. Francis, unfortunately, is not part of our protocol, and we're working on that piece. But we would prefer that if anybody needs a sexual assault exam, that they would go to Piedmont Midtown. So y'all are not seeing my presentation. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Let me get back to sharing my screen. I told you, Alicia, this is not my thing. All right, so share screen. Okay, now we got you. Fabulous. Thank you, Andrea. And so our mission, it's important. It's on every service sheet that we have. Our mission is to provide free and confidential counseling, advocacy support, and referral services to anybody impacted by sexual violence, dating violence, stalking, and human trafficking. Because the overlap is tremendous with domestic violence, we do work very closely with Hope Harbor and can refer people to them as needed. Nowadays, because there are many, many people affected by intimate partner violence and dating violence, which is often called domestic violence. People can choose where they seek to serve, where they seek services. And so, again, we work very closely with Hope Harbor, but they can choose to come to us. We do not shelter. That is one of the biggest differences, but the majority of the services are available for both agencies. We do see a tremendous amount of stalking cases as they accompany our sexual assaults as well. So the photo you can see my SANE coordinator, Andy Bailey, and there's Andrea, and then is a former victim advocate that worked with us until last year. And of course, we work to empower families and communities by providing awareness and training towards the prevention of gender-based violence. So we are the state certified sexual assault center. And that's really important because that sets a high standard for our service provision. And we have to meet many, many standards in order to do so. But sexual violence is an umbrella term. It's really important for people to understand. There are many, many things that encompasses. It's not just rape. So there can be child molestations, there can be peeping toms, there can be many, many sexual assault statutes in the state of Georgia. And so it can encompass domestic violence usually accompanies rape cases as well. Stalking, dating violence, trafficking, all of these kind of overlap tremendously, and sexual violence is the umbrella term for that. So just a little bit about some of these services. Our services, again, are free and confidential. Okay, so there are a few pieces in there that might make a difference. If you are under the age of 18, then there is a mandatory reporting piece that kicks in. And we will certainly notify anybody if they call us about that sort of thing. We're going to give them that information. If we cannot identify them, of course, it makes it very difficult. But we will give them all of the information they need as far as being able to contact law enforcement or DFACS. They can come here to our office and be able to call patrol to come here and take a report. And that makes it a lot easier sometimes for people. But just touching on medical, legal, and law enforcement advocacy, we do have an interview space here that Law Enforcement Special Victims Unit uses. So it makes it very comfortable and homey. We are required to provide medical and legal advocacy. So that means that if somebody is in need of those services, then we have to try to figure out a way to support them through that. So one of the biggest pieces for the medical for us is the forensic medical exam, which most people know as a rape kit. So if somebody has been sexually assaulted, and it's not just rape that they might need a kit for, if somebody has been sexually assaulted, they can present in the emergency room at one of the Piedmont hospitals, or they can come to the center. They may need to be medically cleared if that is the case, and we might have to send them to the hospital. So let's say somebody has been a victim of a strangulation, which happens very frequently, especially in intimate partner cases. If they've been a victim of strangulation, we are going to send them to the emergency room because that is very important. That can cause severe damage to an individual, including traumatic brain injury. And because we see that tremendous level of violence with our cases, we want them to start in the ER and be cleared. Counseling and support groups is probably one of the biggest pieces for us. We do a tremendous amount of counseling referral. I have 3 agencies that we work with that are phenomenal. And we can refer people to a therapeutic session. They can get 12 free sessions a year from us. It's set up kind of like an employee assistance program. So you don't have to share all your information with us. If you have experienced any type of sexual violence, and you want therapy, then come see us. We can do an intake and we can talk about getting you that help. If you need transportation to that therapeutic session, we also can work that out. So that's very helpful for a lot of people, whether it's bus passes, whether it's, the cab company we work with, that should not be a hindrance to anybody. There are options. Emergency financial assistance, I want to be very clear to state that if there is something related to the crime that you experience, we may be able to provide emergency financial. So let's say somebody kicks in your door and you have damage to your door, you need a new lock. We are probably the only resource to assist with that sort of help. If the funds are available, we are going to make sure that nobody is going to be stuck with a broken door due to a sexual assault. There is victims' compensation assistance as well. But the one big piece about victims' comp is that you have to file a police report. So, it's kind of sad. Only 1 out of 10 victims reports their sexual assault. So that's going to be 9 other people that might need victims' comp assistance who are not going to be eligible. You have to file a report. So we will tell people up front to go ahead if you can, if you are able and you can choose to file that police report, to do it. Let them do the investigation, let you file victims' compensation, and you can drop that case later if you choose. But let's work towards getting that victim's comp. You might be out of work for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and comp may be eligible, or you may be eligible for that comp to cover that loss of payment. And so that's really important. There's a lot of money in the state of Georgia to assist victims of crime with victims' compensation. Okay, so again, have to file a police report. It's a reimbursement program, which means the bills generally must be paid first. I cannot pay it. They will not reimburse me for a client's bill. So there are occasions where if the client cannot pay it, that the state will compensate the provider without that reimbursement piece. But I'm not made aware of any of those situations. So again, emergency shelter, really important to know. We do not shelter. We do our best to assist with getting safe housing for individuals. That, y'all know, is one of the worst things in Columbus. We have a homeless problem. There are not enough beds for women and children in our community. There are not enough safe places for any victims of violence to go. So that's one of the most difficult things that we face. And I hate that. I really do. So if we have to go out of the community to find that space, we will do our best to do so. Temporary protective order assistance. Our community is set up a little different in that Hope Harbor has the temporary protective order process in place, but certainly we have assisted many of our clients through that. I will tell you, every victim service provider is supposed to be able to provide TPO assistance. So that is one of our requirements. And we do our best to support victims through that, whether it means, getting them on the phone to Hope Harbor Legal Advocates or to accompanying them to court for that process. Because it can be a little daunting. I know some people have never been to court. It can be a little daunting process. So we'll come back if there's any questions. I do want to make sure y'all can see what we look like. If you've never been to the center, it is a beautiful place. I'm very proud of being able to build what we have here. Most of it through donations, some of it through grants. So it's comfy and very welcoming, which makes a difference if you've experienced a crime of sexual violence. This is my SANE coordinator's intake space. And so here is the exam room. It's way better than an ER. So no offense to the hospital, but it is way better than an emergency room. Here is our interview space. So if somebody reports the crime, law enforcement will bring them here in 9 times out of 10 cases, and they will be interviewed here in this space. So there's advocates here available for that piece as well. If a victim chooses, then law enforcement should allow them to have somebody support them. And this is our space. This is our suite B, which is a little different now. We have a rug and some things in there that make it a little homier, but support group sometimes meets here in this space. So if you've had your exam or your interview in suite A, you may not want to come back to suite A, and support group can meet in suite B. We do generally meet over here in the training room where I am now, just because they like access to all of the information, to the smart TV and all of that sort of thing. And frankly, you know, that changed during COVID. We were over there and then COVID hit and you come back and you have to spatial distance, right? So group is still meeting over here in this space. But you know, just touching on briefly, every 74 seconds, somebody is sexually assaulted in our country. A little optimism here, that changed in the past year from 68 to 74. So, you know, woo, a little positive in all of this. Now, do I always think that that's necessarily true? No, I will tell you it's still going on. We stay very busy and people just don't report. So we have seen a tremendous decline in the number of people reporting. And we frankly have seen a tremendous decline in the number of people that are actually seeking help. So that's a little concerning. But just to know that 1 in 6 women has experienced some type of sexual assault and 1 in 33 men. So we currently have about 6, 7 males that are involved in the process who have stayed thanks to therapy. And that's good for us. That's a good number to have. Every 9 minutes, Child Protective Services substantiates or finds evidence for some type of child abuse. So, you know, we have millions of cases per year in our country of child abuse. Over 10 million men and women a year experience intimate partner violence. So, you know, might not be married, they might live together. It could be some other relationship as well. So the sad part of that is only out of 1,000 sexual assaults, only 310 are reported to police. So that's a pretty low number. And because of that, only 25 out of those 1,000 will ever end up in prison because of the crime. So the reality is most people aren't sex offenders. Very few people are sex offenders. Those that are tend to repeat over and over and over. And if they're not reported, then of course that makes it a little bit easier for people not to have to, that makes it easier for them to reoffend. It really does. So in a nutshell, there's a bunch of other slides we could, you know, talk about. I do want people to understand that offenders target victims. They target those who they think are easy to get to, who won't be believed, who are vulnerable, right? And may lack credibility. That means, you know, maybe mental health issues, maybe age issues, maybe homeless, maybe they actually work in the sex industry. They are going to target and choose people that won't be believed. Okay, and so that's really sad because that means those that are vulnerable believe that they're not going to be believed, and so they choose not to report. And so certainly those that might have some type of history of incarceration might feel that they know how the system's going to treat them and they choose not to report. So, you know, one of the important things is to make sure people understand if they come to us, we are going to believe you and we are going to do our best to support you. The only restriction I have as far as incarceration is if somebody has been convicted of a sex crime, the state funding and federal funding will not allow me to provide support. So that's the biggest piece in all of that. And of course, that makes it super difficult. If somebody has been molested as a child and then at some point may have a misdemeanor charge, send them to us and we can talk about them getting therapy. I know how it works. So I don't want that to stop anybody from asking questions or coming to us to seek help. Okay. So I don't think I'll go into all of this other stuff, but I do want people to see, what does a sexual assault victim look like? Like these people, these are all victims, celebrities, sports heroes, musicians who have at some point spoken out about the sexual violence in their lives. You can see it's varied. Tremendous amount of celebrities have, thank goodness, because I think that has called attention to the cause and certainly has brought help to many people. So, it's important to see. I think that there are a variety of people that have been impacted and are willing to speak. So I think in a nutshell, let's see. If we talk about intimate partner violence, 1 in 7 men will be victims as well as women. When you mentioned at the beginning about 300 women in Georgia, it's really scary to say that Georgia is usually in the top 3 for deaths of females due to homicide from domestic violence. I think we might be currently number 3. We could be number 1. That's how bad the numbers are sometimes. But each day, 3 or more women are murdered by their boyfriends or husbands, according to the American Psychological Association. So that's a terrifying number. 3.3 to 10 million children a year witness domestic violence. That's a huge number. And so part of this slide here is talking about the impact that it has on children. There are long-lasting harms to children as a result of witnessing domestic violence, the same as experiencing it. So we do have a tremendous amount of people that come to us now diagnosed already with PTSD. And they do see that children who've experienced domestic violence, whether it's witnessing it or experiencing it themselves directly, also can have the same PTSD symptoms as a soldier returning from war. So that's huge. That is huge. And certainly we know that there are things as a result of that early exposure. I'll just briefly say that we know it changes the brain structure. Okay, so somebody that, has grown up with that and experienced that is going to have some issues that are going to show up as a result of that issue with the brain. It could be early aging, it could be trouble in school and that sort of thing. And Andrea can certainly address that now with her other job that she has. She sees the impact that domestic violence and sexual violence has had on some of her clients. So trafficking is a problem not as big in our area. The majority of victims that we see here are generally brought out of the Atlanta area or down south area, again, to be able to be housed. And we provide a lot of support for trafficked adults. But it is a tough thing. They have to be ready to want to get out of that. And oftentimes we never get the victims until law enforcement is involved. So that makes it tough. Andrea, what would you like to add about all this stuff we've talked about?
If you can stop sharing, Kyle, so we can see Andrea.
No.
You probably got 2 devices on.
Okay.
Or y'all are near each other.
We are. Yeah, she's right here. So do you have any questions offhand that
Or mute, Andrea, if you mute, or Kyle mute.
I will.
Let me see if that works.
And then you unmute.
Good afternoon. So do you have any questions as far as the advocacy part of what the program provides support for our victims and clients?
No, I just actually wanted to, so we can open it up for Q&A now?
Can you open
We
it
ready for Q&A?
Are you ready for Q&A?
Oh, we can certainly.
Okay. So one of my questions, I was kind of really shocked about the fact that it reminded me of the fact that just due to policy that y'all aren't able to help women who may be on the registry or men who are on the registry. And I think that's sad because it reminds me of those laws that make it really hard for women who do sex work, aka prostitutes, to claim rape, because that's the first thing people say. So in essence, by doing that, it makes it says that if you are on the sex, if you're on the sex registry, but you are legitimately raped, too bad. And I hate that because I don't think there should ever be a time where folks feel like they cannot seek help or call because of that. So I'm hoping that some of these one day that kind of law will change because everybody needs help that they need. But one of my questions was two questions. Y'all are only in Columbus, right? Or do y'all work with other organizations? Like for instance, if y'all are in Columbus, but you get a client that they feel the best thing to do is kind of relocate. So I imagine you all would kind of work with other agencies, but are y'all just local in Columbus?
We are local, but we do support others outside our area.
Okay. Okay. And for instance, I know you all said y'all don't have a shelter on site, or I can't remember if you said you help with hotel assistance, but if there's an instance of several times we've had to do it on my own, get a call from somebody whose abuser is a truck driver. He's about to be gone 10 days. She needs to leave and she needs to leave now. Do you all support help with hotel stays for that in transition to getting to somewhere else? Or like for instance, if y'all call and they say we can get a bed for her, but it's going to be 14 days. But if she waited 14 days, he'd be back. So in that instance, would you all kind of support that? If she needed a hotel stay until she can get in the other placement, or he could get in the other placement?
We have supported victims who are in need of relocation
Okay.
and provided them with hotel support.
Okay. Okay.
Again, that is one of the hardest things because unfortunately, if anybody's had a bad experience in one of the agencies and is not allowed back in, that limits us. And sometimes that happens. There are some shelters that are going to drug test,
Okay.
and that makes it difficult for our clients.
Okay.
But back to your initial question, I understand. I muted mine.
It's not because you're muted. The audio needs to be disconnected from one of them. But since y'all gonna be at the same computer, just go down there where her microphone is, and it'll say disconnect audio, and just hit disconnect audio.
Okay.
Or leave computer audio, and that'll get rid of that feedback.
Is it echoing on your end?
No, we did.
No, I think she stopped it.
So the reason I said, come ask us, come seek, those answers, is because if somebody has a misdemeanor conviction, it's probably not prohibitive. Okay. If there's a felony conviction for a sex crime, it might be. So we have had people, we work very closely with Safe House and those programs. And we know that there are people that have been incarcerated, right, because of those crimes. And there are some that have, many through the years, that have come and sat down with us, and we have sent them to therapy. And quite frankly, we're not asking, are you a registered sex offender? Okay. But I have to state that because that's what the state puts in our special conditions. So we understand that many, many people have been victimized when they are younger, which is why they've ended up in the system in the first place. And so we certainly want to be able to provide support to get the help that they need. And that vicious cycle: addiction, mental health, and incarceration, and so because we do know that, and we have a lot of experience in dealing with those clients, we want to make sure that they know that may be an option here for help, okay, and not to make that determination on their own.
We have assisted a lot of victims, a lot of clients rather, who have come in from Grace House, and I'm not sure which is
Yeah.
part of the house.
Yeah.
With counseling, provide transportation, emergency financials,
Okay.
supporting them. We have a boutique here on site. We've supported them with clothes, and any other personal items hygiene items that they have. We have supported them with those things.
Okay. Okay. So there's still some options. It's never
Support
like
group.
turned away because you're on the registry.
No,
There
we
is
have,
still
I
some
know.
options in somewhere. Okay.
Right, yeah.
It's hard and we understand
Okay.
that. We did have a support group that was meeting in the jail for the incarcerated women that the chaplain selected the audience that could attend. But we have not implemented that again recently, and hope to do so. But
And I'm hoping that if you all are able to get back in there as well, a lot of folks don't know about it, but HB 582 was passed over the summer. And that is the Survivor Justice Initiative, which the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence and all of their partners rallied around, which is the Georgia Survivor Act. So a lot of folks don't know that there is now this new law that help survivors have full content. Most of the time when you go, it's just, oh, I shot this man, and you're judged based on the fact that you shot your abuser. Where the new law says it actually takes in accountability. It takes in account the criminal code and the sentencing statutes. It takes in account what has actually happened and what were the circumstances, both at the trial and sentencing. And a lot of folks don't know it's retroactive. So there are women right now and men sitting in prison and jail right now who did what they needed to do to stay safe, and they can actually apply to have that retroactive. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that on this call, because whether it's this session or the last session, that if someone watches it on YouTube, I want them to be able to know that that is a new law. You must have police reports, and you've had proof over the years, whether it's TPOs, whether it's police records and bruises, and you can prove that, hey, this is, this was this led up to one of them burning bed, moments, and you could possibly not get time or have it extremely reduced, because it makes no sense. Just like a lot of times when you're watching Law and Order and all these other things where people are actually re-victimizing sexual assault victims, it makes absolutely no sense for folks who have been begging and asking for help for so long to only again to get re-traumatized by being locked up for hurting somebody who has been hurting them for so long, and people knew about it. And so I would like to thank you all so much. This was very informative. I knew that you all did some programs, but I know y'all was doing as much as what y'all are doing. Irma, did you have any questions? Irma is one of our
I'm
board
along
members, and
with
she comes around with a lot of folks, so she makes sure she
No,
gets equipped with the information.
I don't have any questions. Very informative, but good work. Sad work, but good work.
Yeah. So
we've come
that's
a
what
long
we've been
way in
doing.
Georgia, but we
Yeah.
have a long way to go.
How long
We
have
do.
y'all been there in Columbus?
So we've been around since 1981. We started
Okay.
as Columbus Rape Crisis, but then we
Okay.
changed the name to Sexual Assault Support Center because people were limited to rape, and the term is scary. And I didn't like telling people that I worked for Rape Crisis. And so we changed the name to Sexual Assault Support Center. So not a lot better, but it tells you who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
So my legal name is still Sexual Assault Support Center, but when we moved to this location at 909 Talbotton Road, one of my board members came up with the name, and we love it. It is a much better name.
Okay.
It doesn't tell you exactly who we are and what we do, but it's a lot less intimidating.
Okay. And it's also good too if for some reason the actual person who's doing the abusing doesn't necessarily see if if he's checking the phone call and sees that the center at 909 called, it's not as scary to know that, oh, so you've been on the phone with the sexual assault crazy, that too also is a good perk. So but y'all have
Right.
been doing great work ever since I met y'all at the met Andrea at the resource fair we had in July. It was like, okay, because of course I'm from Columbus, but I always know of that one, that one, that one, that one. And I'm like, no, there's other folks in Columbus that's doing this work. So yes, everybody's doing great work, but we want to let people know exactly what is available there in their community. And there's so much more help if we would just take the time to look for it. And when we have events like these, come on to this stuff if you can, to get the information. So I appreciate you all taking this time out to do
For
that. I think
inviting
I've gotten my questions out.
Mhm.
And thank you for the work that you do. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
I think there was one more question. Okay. And this is personal to me. So I know with the Victims Compensation Fund, how, and I know this is probably outside of what y'all normally do because y'all work with folks with sexual assault. But as I was reading up on it as a loved one of someone who has just experienced violence and one person died from it, how does the Victim Compensation Fund work hand in hand with folks of gun violence? Is that something that also helps? Are they able to get compensated? So where does that fund come from? Like, who is this fund is coming from? And how did they get some outside? This is the first time I had heard of it from your call, so I assume that you're only helping folks who's coming to get service through y'all. But if I know someone personally that has experienced gun violence, they are now going to be hospitalized for the next year and a half. They lost their job. Their children are being relocated. They need help. Who can they contact? Because I know all I have is your website, and I wouldn't want to overwhelm someone who's not coming to get the sexual assault services that y'all provide. So is there someone in the community? And if you don't know, that's fine too, but I just noticed I read it and it did say it's open to other folks of violence. And a lot of people don't really see that as a man walking up and shooting a woman with a gun as domestic violence. To me, I do feel like it is domestic violence. So I wanted to find out how can I get this person connected? Because I do personally feel that when a man walks up and shoots a woman, that's domestic violence. But some people may not see it like that. But I would like to get her some support.
So, every client that we see is going to get a victim's compensation information. Okay.
Okay.
First, you have to file a police report.
It
You
has
have
been
to
done.
file it. The determination is not made by us, but there are the state. The funds are from state and federal dollars that are put into this pot of money.
Okay.
It just rolls over every year. It can cover medical expenses, legal expenses, lost wages, funeral, counseling, and crime scene cleanup. Okay, so we would, and it can be done online through a portal. But if you
Okay.
have experienced a crime, if you have reported it to law enforcement, we tell everybody you may be eligible. Because again, we're not making that determination, and I don't want them to think so. But every victim in the state of Georgia has certain rights as a victim of a crime. And
does it have to be a violent crime?
As a victim of violent crime, you can go to the official code of Georgia. It's 1717-1 to see the code, the Bill of Rights that victims have. And then you can also go to the Victims Compensation Program in Georgia. Criminal Justice Coordinating Council organizes that, and see the requirements. So it'll tell you, you've got to have a police report, you've got to submit and have a signed application. You don't have to know who the offender is, because that's huge.
Okay.
Right? That's very important, because everybody doesn't know who committed the crime against them. And they are as they say, the payer of last resort. So if you have insurance that's going to cover something, then comp will probably not pay anything towards that. It is anything that the victim may be out of pocket for. Okay. And sadly, they do not do property crime type things. So if your home is shot up as a result of gun violence, they're not going to assist you in that piece.
At least with trauma, I mean, some counseling, because that's traumatic. We just read in the news somewhere where somebody went up and shot a house, and there was like 6 children in the house. I mean, not just the fact that the bullets, and these are beds, so they got to go sleep at night and know that there's, and looking around and see that the window's been shattered and see these bullet holes in the wall. But that's traumatic that they were sitting in their house watching Coco Melon, and all of a sudden somebody starts shooting in the wall. I mean, in the house. That.
That's part of when I say we have
at least
a long
they
way
could
to
say
go.
is we can't replace your doors and we can't replace your windows, but we can get you some trauma therapy.
Can you repeat that? You said 1717.
1717-1.
I'm dropping it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. 1717-1, and that gives you the Bill of Rights. And then, like I said, you can go to Victims Comp Look it up in Georgia under CJCC. It's actually Crime Victims Comp, GA.gov, and find out that information. And you know, sadly for us, there is a lot of money out there in that, and a lot of our victims struggle with victims compensation. It's hard. It's hard for us to get that information together and get it in. And again, in Georgia, a victim can have a forensic medical exam or rape kit without filing a report to law enforcement. But if they don't file a report, guess what? Their kit will not be tested, and they will not be eligible for victims comp. So
Gotta find a report. And we will provide assistance with that as well
Okay.
in completion of the application.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any other questions, Irma?
No.
All righty.
I'm gonna
Well,
grab
thank
this
you
one.
all so very much. This has been very, very informative. I'll be working on getting the getting everything loaded up to the thing, and we'll share it out. And the additional resources that I've just been dropping in the chat, I'll make sure send those to you as well.
Okay.
Will the slides be made available? If not, it's okay. I just want to make sure.
Made about.
No, I
Or
really
just
don't
certain
share my
ones.
information.
Okay,
Just
that's fine.
constantly changing it. Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to put just a few description, like a few stats. Can you send me just a few bullet points of the stats of folks in Columbus, and maybe 3 bullet points? Like you said at first, y'all, how many men you may see a year, something like just a few stats, that, and then maybe some Georgia stats, nationwide stats. And that'll help me with putting this online in the description. Okay. Well, thank you all so very much. This has been amazing and very, very informative. And I will definitely make sure that we get this information shared out. And thank you all so much for the amazing work that you do, and just the compassion that you have to continue to do this work, because it's got to be hard work. Just to being able to not take on a lot of that pain that you're seeing, I'm sure undoubtedly that you're seeing people take. So thank you all so very much for joining us, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Seeing you, Irma.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, there we go.